The following is brought to you by paulakers.net.
So one of my favorite things is to have a deep understanding of the Japanese people, the culture, and how it all came to be. So up in Hokkaido, one of the northernmost place where I did some farming up here, if you recall some of my videos, the Ainu people who used to habitate this area, and as the Japanese people began to move into this area, they really felt a need to develop this island because it happened to be very good for growing things. It had a lot of nice agricultural land, but they really probably weren't so savvy about how to do all that, so they invited a Dr. Clark from the Massachusetts Institute of Agriculture from the United States to come and help them establish a school. And the school was located in Sapporo, one of the biggest and most beautiful cities in all of Japan up in the north, and I got to visit there along with hundreds of other Japanese students who are also very curious about the history of Japan. So these two Americans who were asked by the Japanese to come over here and help develop Hokkaido, Dr. Clark, Massachusetts Institute of Agriculture, came over and he said, "Be ambitious." Dr. Clark, who left Sapporo on April 16, 1877, is quoted as saying, while on horseback, "Boys, be ambitious," to students. This is even more incredible. Look what he says here. Dr. Clark, who became the first president of Agricultural College, educated students by saying, "We don't need rigorous rules. What I expect from students is to just be gentle. I hope that students will act based on their conscience and correct judgment. Comprehensive education, including humanities, natural science, physical education, and moral education based on Christianity was provided, producing many excellent individuals." So some of the top leaders of Japan came out of this school in Hokkaido. Isn't this amazing how the Japanese knew to ask people who were successful in the United States to come help them, and the advice they got was so profound. This is what I love about Japan. Always learning, humbly learning. So coincidentally, on the same day in the morning, I was driving by and I saw the Ainu Museum, which was a beautiful museum set up to pay tribute to the Ainu people who originally populated Japan, and particularly Hokkaido. And I went around this museum and I learned so many things that I never knew. Now, these people look a lot like the Eskimos from the United States. They have a Mongolian look to them as well. They probably came across from China and came across by boat. Very interesting culture, pretty developed culture too, very big into agricultural and fishing and nice arts and crafts as well. They had made skis that they put animal skins on the bottom of them to keep them from sliding backwards as they track forward across the snow. But I saw all of their arts and crafts, their utensils they use for cooking, their pots. And then just a few hours away, I ended up in Sapporo, and I learned about this amazing agricultural school that Dr. Clark and his associates had set up to help the Japanese people learn more about Western principles of agriculture. Isn't this incredible? And today, the Japanese people are known to be some of the best farmers in the world, if not the best and the most efficient. So I sat next to Dr. Clark and I reminisced about all the things I'd learned about Japan, and probably one of the most interesting things was this. Inazo Nitobe is one of the top philosophers in Japanese culture and history. And Inazo was actually trained by Dr. Clark, and he went to school here, and I never knew that. He wrote a book called Bushido, which was explaining the Japanese culture to Western cultures and why the Japanese were the way they were. Another interesting thing about Nitobe that was amazing was he was a Christian, and he probably became a Christian as a result of Dr. Clark's work. And he spoke fluent English. He was highly educated, a PhD, and he had a really bad temper, and then he moderated that temper and became gentle. Remember, Dr. Clark admonished the students to be gentle and ambitious. Remember that? Well, Nitobe was exactly that, and I never knew any of this. I never knew about Nitobe's connection to Dr. Clark or to Hokkaido or to the School of Agriculture. I didn't know anything, but I discovered that just by pulling back the curtain and asking some questions as I traveled throughout Japan. Isn't it a fascinating world? And isn't Japan amazing? One more amazing fact is Nitobe, when he was lecturing in the United States, that's where he met his wife. His wife was an American. And his wife actually approached him because he was such a fascinating and passionate person and said, "You are really interesting." And they got married. And the rest is history.
Brought to you by paulakers.net, where you'll find all Paul's books and lean resources for free, including the new 2-second Lean Play app. like Audible, but free. To listen to Lean is Lean on the 2-Second Lean Play app at paulakers.net.